Deal is it's a very fascinating and big deal from many different aspects. But the deal can be actually seen as a part of the famous Chinese initiative, the Belt and Road Initiative, the new Silk Road or whatever they want to call it. And it would basically Iran would become the major energy provider for the Chinese industrial growth, global industrial growth.
But I mean,
But
what I found super interesting, though, now that you say this, is that Saudi Arabia is still the number one seller by far of oil. I mean, they actually broke new records apparently in May for the amount of oil that they sold to the Chinese.
oh yeah, well the Saudis are trying very hard to get the Iranian and Russian markets, which traditionally China was a customer of Iran and Russia. So yeah, I mean that's what caused the collapse of the oil prices during the last 6 months ago. Was it 6 months ago, a year ago? It feel after coronavirus, it feels like so long ago. But before Corona, we already had the collapse of the oil prices to negative, right? That was partially because of this competition among the states. But let me give you some details about the deal, some controversial details. So the major detail is the $400 billion investment. The controversial details are, well, first non-controversial detail is that there is going to be major railroad projects connecting Iran to Central Asia and Iran to Pakistan, and some within Iran and connecting Iran to Afghanistan. And there is going to be Chinese presence in Iranian ports in the Persian Gulf, and that's been a controversial, and many Western articles, like in America, they highlighted this point. And there is a possibility of a presence of Chinese troops of about 5,000 in Iran for protection of their assets. It's a possibility at this point. It's not for sure, but that's been controversial within Iran. And and there is from the people who've read the deal in details, the not the deal, the draft that has been leaked basically. And there is apparently it's not just about Chinese investment in Iran, but a promise of a strategic partnership investments in, for example, in places like Iraq and Syria. So that could be quite interesting. So some people see that as China using Iran's expertise to increase its role in the Middle East.
I see. So
But these
joint
are,
kind of joint investment projects in third countries.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know what's your take on this. What do you see there's as some people argue? Do you see it as a Chinese takeover of Iran or just a strategic partnership?
Well, I mean, it sounds very typical Chinese. You know, if you think about it these days, they like to make bilateral agreements with countries, with all kinds of countries in Africa, other places in the world, just playing with everybody as much as possible, buying oil from the Saudis, striking deals with the Iranians, being close to Israel, doing as much as possible and extending the Belt and Road Initiative. And you're right, it probably sounds like it links to that too, to a certain extent. So it sounds very much like a typical deal that China has been making with other countries. And I mean, and from Iran's point of view, it was just, to me, it seems like a no-brainer. I mean, you're completely frozen out of the international market, of dealing with the world's biggest economy, of dealing making it with the US, which makes it hard for them to also deal with the EU. So I mean, besides the Chinese, they have nowhere else to turn and to look. So I mean, I thought, to me, it just made complete complete sense. None of these things I find them to be too much problematic. I mean, the part with the forces and stuff. I mean, China doesn't. I don't know to what extent, if that will be what, if they have troops to, exactly, if it's to look after some of their investments, or to what extent. I mean, the reason that it's controversial in Iran is because it's against the constitution or something like that, right? To have foreign forces on Iranian territory. Am I right in any
Uh,
way there?
I'm not sure. I think it comes down to interpretation probably because it's probably foreign. I don't know if it's I don't know. I have to look into the text exactly. But the Iranian constitution is not exact has not stopped the government from doing anything so far. So yeah, yeah. I mean, I think Iranian nationalism, I think, is the major. That's why people don't like it too much. But I just don't think 5,000 troops are that like they don't put the security in jeopardy. I don't think. I don't know.
In no way. What I mean, I don't think so either. So I mean, now what's gonna come to fruition from this deal? Now that's a different question.
Yeah, yeah. I would let me give you an internal perspective as well, though, like an internal from the about the internal dynamics. Quite quite interestingly, um, you know, as a result of the falling apart of the U.S.-Iran deal and this deal, obviously the part of the the politicians who were more in favor of dealing with the West are obviously getting battered though. Even though Rouhani is the one who signed this deal, a lot of people still criticize him for being late about it, and they should have been more welcoming to China's overtures before and all that. At the same time, you had the very conservative people criticizing the deal because of the reasons I mentioned before. So while the deal, I mean, from Iranian, as you said, it seems like a no-brainer, still the opinions were quite divided.
Yeah, I can see that. But I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes these opinions are. I'm talking about opinions in general. They're like ideological. So regardless of what's in the deal, they'll
Oh
be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Oh, don't make a deal with China," or for God knows what reason.
And to be honest, I have a feeling conservatives were happy to uh, criticize Rouhani for like the the problems of this deal, but if they were in his positions, they would have like they were happy that he signed it. Actually, he got the the shitstorm basically for it. But overall, what other aspects? I don't know. The oh, have you seen any coverage of this deal in Western papers? What were they saying?
Initially, I mean, I can't say that I've been reading this actively. I mean, at first, I just saw it in the Western media as it was announced everywhere else. I heard a little bit about the controversies that you were saying from Iran, but I haven't read or seen anything too interesting from here. And I mean, I don't from the US or European outlets. Haven't seen anything specific. And
I would say that in my experience, all the major articles I read in New York Times and a couple of other places, foreign policy analysis, they were way too more optimistic about the deal than Iranians and Chinese, I think, are. You know, they may use it in their political speeches to say, no, it's a fantastic deal. It's gonna do this. It's gonna do that. But I do think they were exaggerating in foreign, like in American media, of the level of importance this has, and they were making a bigger deal of it than it is. And there is a very interesting interview with one of the Iranian diplomats on RT. We put the link below again. And in that, it's quite interesting. He, as he's an acting politician, right? He's very careful. He keeps trying to say that this is about Iran and China. The the host keeps saying that, oh, is this about is this about America? Is this you guys hitting back against American hegemony and uh, their sanctions and blah blah blah? And the Iranian diplomat is very careful and constantly says, no, this has nothing to do with America. We have a separate and independent relation with China going back many years, and we deal with America at a later point, or whenever we deal with America, whatever. So Iran is basically is not trying to probably pit China against America. Although I think that one of the reason why the timing of this deal is it happened now is because Iran is thinking that Joe Biden will win the U.S. elections, and when Joe Biden is gonna possibly come back to the, Iran U.S. deal, or try to at least make some overtures towards the Iranian regime, then they'll have something to trade. That's my thinking, because that goes back towards the old Iranian foreign policy, which I think they called it tawazuneh or something. It's called balance, basically trying to balance one foreign power with another foreign power.
I see. So yeah, I mean, yeah, but I mean, it is definitely helpful in that sense too. But I'm guessing if Biden comes back into power, he'll probably just out of spite of Trump try to put the deal back where it was more or less.
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, that would be the bare minimum from the view of Iranians, but at the same time, I'm not so sure because you have quite a lot of few neocons within the Joe Biden administration, and they've been saying a lot of, oh, Iran also has made a lot of mistakes, we should do that, we should do this. I don't know, maybe this is just so they have enough space for maneuver. Maybe they don't want to say that, oh, we're gonna go back. They don't want to admit that they gonna do that right now. But at the same
But
time,
they're gonna have to do something. Like they're gonna do something about the deal, though. I think.
oh, for sure, or about Iran for sure. Yeah, at least I think they're gonna probably lift some of the sanctions on the third countries. Like Japan, and stuff. That's been one aspect. Oh, and another very interesting aspect about this deal, which I didn't see coming at all, was that it has affected Iran's relations with other countries.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. About towards India, I believe. I think India wasn't too happy about it, right?
No, not at all, because India was the country that was like the companies from India was supposed to help to build the railroads in southeast Iran, which is a very strategic point, especially from the Indian point of view, because India wants access to Afghanistan uh, without going through Pakistan. Pakistan is a big ally of China already, and now Iran is becoming a big ally of China and probably getting closer to Pakistan. And they cut them out of the railroad deal. They cut them out of a gas exploration deal in the Persian Gulf or Sea of Oman. I'm not sure. And yes, yes, and it was quite interesting. I mean, I watched quite a lot because India, thankfully, because there's a lot of English speakers, they do produce a lot of English content, and it was quite interesting on YouTube. There were quite a lot of Indian channels. Some of them were very negative, like saying, "Oh, Iran just signed its death warrant with this deal. China is gonna, betray Iran or whatever." And some were more like, "Oh, India lost a good opportunity," and some were, to be honest, I think we're quite balanced. That India tried, but because of U.S. Sanctions and U.S. pressures, it couldn't basically do anything. And they pointed out, which I didn't know at that time, that apparently India is increasing its relations with Israel and certain Sunni majority Arab states. So maybe India is basically shifting more towards the Saudi Israeli camp as a whole, and that maybe also be an extra reason why Iran pushed them out so fast. But it's not just limited to India, though. Their relations with South Korea has soured very significantly. Yeah, yeah, Iran has threatened to bring legal action against South Korea because they haven't paid them for oil money, and they've been dragging their feet about the whole, setting up a special corridor for finances and all that. So this China deal, the immediate effect, at least it seems, the immediate effect is Iran getting bolder in the international sphere and demanding more from other partners.